Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, we're going to circle now back to that huge ruling out of Kansas from last week. You know the one I'm talking about, the huge ruling on machine guns. That's right. A United States District Court in Kansas has found that 18 United States Code Section 922 sub O is unconstitutional. That is the federal prohibition on automatic weapons. Now, I know it had a lot of you really excited. You're all doing your budgeting, and I know you're all thinking, oh, I'm going to get to do my own full auto Friday just like Mr. Guns and Gear here starting pretty soon. Well, don't hold your breath. Because after you do a video that says, hey, everybody, here's the good news, look what the court did, the responsible thing to do is this video, which is like, well, now let's temper it and talk about what it really does actually do or not do for you. So today, that's exactly what we're going to do. So let's spend a few minutes, let's get you educated, and let's talk about what does the huge machine gun ruling really mean to you? Okay, hey, before we get going too far down the road, we are going down. You know, we tell you here all the time at Washington Gun Law, we're not going to tell you how to think. We're just going to give you all the stuff to think about. Well, does the news treat you the same way? And that's why I've been using ground news, because in today's world of media bias and censorship, ground news gives you the freedom to learn for yourself, attach your own weight to the facts, and come to your own conclusion. Wow, what a concept, huh? Here's how it works. Take today's story, for example. You start searching it out, and now, 1, you can see who the news source is and what is their political leaning. 2, you can learn who actually owns those individual news sources. 3, you can see the headline manipulation, so now you understand how the story is being distorted. And most importantly, 4, the biased distribution of each story. But then there's a lot more cool features. Like Discover Plus, which is unlocked only with a Vantage plan. But here you can customize your own news feed to cover the topics that interest you the most, like, Second Amendment news. Then Ground News will populate your news feed based upon these settings. Here's the best news. Right now, you can get 40% off a Vantage plan by visiting ground.news/Washington. Listen, it's time that you break free from all the media bias and manipulation. It's time that you start being able to make up your own mind. It's time for the news to start treating you like an adult. For more information, visit my good friends at ground.news/Washington. Okay, America, we're going to circle back now to the case of United States of America versus Tamori Morgan. This is a case that we talked about last week. It was the big to-do last week, which is where a United States District Court in the District of Kansas actually found that the federal prohibition against automatic weapons was in fact unconstitutional. We're going to talk about 2 things today. Number 1, we're going to talk about how did this even happen? Okay, how did this happen? Because I know some of you are like, well, the court applied the Constitution. Yeah, I wish it was that simple. But actually what we're going to do is we're going to explain that the United States kind of just slept on this one a little bit, okay? And then we're going to talk about what does it mean to you? And that's really the most important thing here is, does this have any immediate effect on you, or is it likely to have any effect on you at any time, at any point? That's also something you need to understand. Okay, how did this happen? Now, listen, I know that the minute that Bruin opinion came out a couple summers ago, you were all imagining all the different things that can be done with that. And when it comes to regulation of modern weapons, and when we're going to rely on a historical analog, it will be very difficult for the government ever to support things because, well, they just don't exist. What this has created is the phenomena of the Bruin workaround. And this is how the Bruin workaround normally works. A court realizes, I want to uphold this ban. However, I know there is going to be no historical analogs to support the ban. So what I'll do is I will actually find that the Second Amendment doesn't protect this type of platform of firearm whatsoever. We see that most famously done by the 7th Circuit, where the 7th Circuit basically said when it comes to assault weapons, or what we like to call semi-automatic rifles, the Second Amendment does not protect those weapons at all. And once the court makes a finding that the Second Amendment's no longer in play, then they don't even have to get into the history or lack thereof. And so whenever we've seen challenges to the NFA, when we've seen some challenges in other jurisdictions in which we kind of know the deck is stacked against us, that is always the escape hatch that the government and the courts use to uphold these bans. So when you take a look at the briefing that was filed by the United States Department of Justice in this case, you will notice that they spent a tremendous amount of time convincing the court that, hey, the Second Amendment's not even at play here, and they spent very little time trying to justify it through historical regulations. And one of the reasons they probably spent a little bit of time doing that is there wasn't a lot of research that was going to turn up anything for them. So in many ways, the United States government just kind of became complacent. They kind of mailed it in. They kind of thought they had this one in the bag. And I'm assuming as they were reading through the court's order and they realized that the court had ruled that the Second Amendment was in fact in play here, they had one of those oh no moments, okay? Because they realized at that point that they had left the entire second part of their argument completely wide open. And so one of the problems that the United States government will have going forward is that they are not arguing from the best of records, okay? An appeal is only as good as the record you make at the lower court. And we see all the time appellate courts who want to uphold bans find one little deficiency in the record and say, well, there was insufficient proof and therefore I'm ruling in favor of the government. So the United States government, which is clearly going to appeal this ruling, is not appealing from the strongest of records. And that is something to keep note of. So that's how it happened. Now, what does this really mean to you? Well, I'm recording this video on a Saturday, okay? And by the time you're watching it, it'll probably be Monday. And I'm willing to bet that the Department of Justice will have already filed its notice of appeal. The appeal will be taken to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. Now, I went through and geeked out before I recorded this video to figure out, hey, where's the 10th Circuit come down in the last few years on Second Amendment issues? And, you know, listen, it's not the 9th Circuit, it's not the 7th Circuit, but it's not the 5th Circuit either, okay? This is a court that has routinely upheld firearms regulations. Now, in addition to a notice of appeal being filed, there will be a motion for a stay of the judgment from the lower court pending the appeal. And it is Washington Gun Law's opinion that the 10th Circuit will in fact grant that stay. So, for any of you, especially in Kansas, that thought you're going to go out on Monday, go to your FFL and buy yourself a full auto firearm, don't hold your breath. That is likely not going to occur. So once the stay is granted by the 10th Circuit, which will happen, the case will then proceed and it might go to a 3-judge panel and then ultimately to an en banc panel. But this is where cases start aging out like fine wine, all right? It is Washington Gun Law's opinion, however, that the 10th Circuit is going to reverse the trial court. And I'm not saying that because I think the trial court got it wrong. I actually think the trial court got it right here. But I'm saying this based on our understanding of how the politics interacts with the judicial system and where the 10th Circuit comes from. And candidly, I don't think there is a United States Court of Appeals that's going to want to actually flip an automatic weapon ban. They would rather let the Supreme Court do that. If Morgan loses at the 10th Circuit, which they likely will, they will have the opportunity to petition to the United States Supreme Court. It is Washington Gun Law's prediction that the United States Supreme Court will not accept petition of this case. So what does it really mean to all of you? Well, it is a wonderful moral victory. And yes, there is a chance that this is a spark that starts a huge fire and starts dismantling the NFA. But in reality, based upon this record and the fact that the trial court themselves said, hey, with a better record, the result likely would have been different, I would not start going out and budgeting for you to start adding to your arsenal fully automatic weapons. The case, once again, is United States v. Morgan. We're going to link up the ruling down below so that you guys can all geek out on it for yourself. Maybe you got more questions about this or something else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights. You guys should know how to get a hold of Washington Gun Law by now, but if you don't, that's okay. That information's right down there in the description box. Maybe you got an idea for a video we should be doing here. If you do, go ahead and click on that link right there. A lot of the good ideas we had, candidly, weren't our ideas at all. Maybe you just want to subscribe to our monthly newsletter. The ability to do that is down there in the description box. And then finally, and most importantly, America, let's everyone remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about here all the time, is to know what the law is in every situation and how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.